to carry on with this tire on other side. Yeah, should be okay.
There you go, Mike Conway, succinct. That's kind of the polite Mike Conway version of leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. But that was a genuine question, that wasn't a time waster, that wasn't for race control, that was a genuine, do you want fresh rubber? No, I think we're good to go. It's very hot and it's not damp, and so therefore if he's feeling the love, bear in mind that the allocation per prototype car is not enough to a single stint all the way through. You must double stint the tyres in the dry if you assume it's going to be a dry race all the way through. Of course, we already know it hasn't been, but it's not enough to keep going, and so that's a genuine question. Are we good to double stint on those? Yeah, we're good to go.
Yeah, indeed, Martin Haber, and furthermore, that we're expecting the team to triple stint their tyres through this race, if not even quadruple stint. So that'd be just pit stops, if not 3 between each time they change tyres.
Penn's poised because the Toyota team are poised, and this will be Mike Conway when he comes in as the race leader. Now behind Sebastian Buemi, who appears to have been asleep, has just set the purple sector time in sector 2. So down the Mulsanne Straight and up toward Indianapolis, sector 2 of the race. He is the fastest car so far in the race in that sector, which suggests that A, it's very good in terms of over grip level. His tyres are good to go, and he's in his last drag of fuel. Now he might come in this lap, he might come in one more lap. They're ready for him there, so he's going to come in now as well. He does come down pit road. Toyota are stopping in sync. Car number 5, car number 6, both in the pit lane together as they did at their first stop, and they therefore have done 26 laps each, so that was a 14-lap stint on this fuel tank for both cars, which is what we anticipated would be the case.
Yeah, compared to the 13 for each of the Porsches and 12 only for the Audi.
Audi.
Yes,
How often we say that? We haven't even had a cup of tea and a piece of cake yet. It's 5 o'clock in the evening. We're down to the Audi. I'm not sure.
The other one's out there, but it's 6 laps down.
Yeah, it's on a timing screen that we never look to, because that's for the cars that have retired. We have yet to wield the marker of doom. I have the purple Pentel pound of mild disappointment, with which I'm circling number 7, but the marker of doom has yet to be raised. Now, still a very, very threatening looking sky. Predominantly the weather is still coming from pit lane back towards that part of the circuit, but it could turn.
We just had the leaders from the GTE Pro class, Fred Makovici, come into the pit, followed immediately by James Colado's Ferrari's second place car, and
Giancarlo Fisichella's third place Ferrari, and Sam Bird's fourth place Ferrari. So that's how far the Ferraris can go on fuel, I think we can assume. Porsche too.
The gap between the top 4 cars in the GTE Pro class, just seconds.
Yeah. The biggest gap between any of the top 4 is 3 seconds, 7 seconds actually, from third down to fourth place Dirk Muller. So there is one of your Ferraris. Watch that. That's the 51 car. So that's James Collado, who brought the car in from second place in the GTE Pro class, behind Fred Makovici's Porsche, who in turn had taken it over from Dirk Muller's Ford, which stopped a little earlier and now pops back to the top of the Pro class.
Ноттингем, Англия. За неделю до Уимблдона устройтесь поудобнее и наслаждайтесь красивой игрой. С понедельника в прямом эфире на Евроспорт 1 ATP Ноттингем.
back to our live coverage. Le Mans, you're on board with the number one Porsche. This is our current race leader, Brendan Hartley, and already after just one round of green flag pit stops, we're seeing a pattern starting to emerge. The remaining Audi, or the one that's even on page 1 or 2 of the timing screen, is doing 12 laps on a tank of fuel. The Porsches are doing 13 and the Toyotas are doing 14, but matching their factory rivals for pace. So as the lead has flip-flopped due to pit stops, Brendan Hartley is back in front, but Mike Conway is in second place, 6 seconds ahead of Loic Duval's Audi. Toyota Sebastian Buemi is down fourth and Romain Dumas in fifth. Martin Haven, Jeremy Shaw and Sam Hancock in the booth. And Sam, just as much of a knockdown drag-out fight in the LMP2 class. Looking at the G-Drive car here with the number 28, one of 4 open prototypes. That's the Pegasus Racing Morgan Nissan behind. A fantastic battle all the way through the LMP2 class.
Yeah, you've got Rene Rast there in the G-Drive. Okay, he was leading earlier on, but he's on his way back up from 4th place now. Rene, the pole sitter in that class, obviously, and
28's been delayed. Where's he on the timing screen?
I was just having a look. I can't see him.
No, he is therefore on page 3, so he is a long way back. Our new leader in the GTE class, by the way, Dirk Muller's Ford and Patrick Pilet's Porsche have just stopped, so Jeremy will be sorting that out in his plan of everything that matters, and so too has the 64 Corvette come onto pit road.
I just want to point out a fantastic debut drive from the second of the 2 orange cars on our screen. That is the sister Jota Prepare car in the background. That's the Gibson chassis driven by Jake Dennis, making his Le Mans debut today. He only just turned 21 years old, and in front of him as a sort of benchmark, if you will, the car we're looking at now, Rene Rast. He is one of the world's top drivers. He's Audi's backup driver. He's, in terms of sports car race, absolutely at the pinnacle. Jake, meanwhile, just a few feet behind him down the road.
And between them, number 47, Richard Bradley. So that is a battle for position. Rene Rast is 4th in LMP2, Richard Bradley 5th, Jake Dennis in 6th position. They can see each other. One Aston Martin in between them. In front of them, the LMP2 class leader is Roberto Meri in the Manor Motorsport car. Matthias Besch in 2nd, and another Gibson chassis, Alsaman John Kane in 3rd. Now, he's just missed the kickoff of Northern Ireland, Ukraine. I sort of expected him, half expected him to pit and get out and go in and watch the footy. However, he's a football fan second, even though it's been a while since he's had Northern Ireland team in a major championship to cheer.
And just to note here, last time around, Brendan Hartley turned his best lap of the race at a 3:25.2. And he had, you remember a little while ago, he set the fastest lap of the race. Well, the fastest lap has been set a couple of laps ago by Benoit Trellier in car number 7. So that repaired Audi is the fastest car out there at 3:25.88 for Benoit Trellier, but he is 6 laps behind and not yet even on the second page of our timing system here.
Now, the other Audi, which is currently lying in 3rd place, Loic Duval's number 8 machine, which has been up and down in the lead group, 3:26.4 on the last lap. The leader did a 28.2. Second place, Mike Conway, a 29.6. Now, all of that, some of that, most of that is where you catch slower cars, and with a 60-car entry, 58 of which at least are running healthily still, there's a lot of cars to catch, Sam.
There is, and speaking of cars trying to catch each other, we're riding on board, and the meat in the sandwich of the battle for 4th place in GTE Pro right now, that was on board with Dirk Müller in the Ford GT as he chases down Sam Bird's AF Corsa Ferrari, and being dropped actually just behind them. Last year's outright race winner Earl Bamber moved from the prototype categories to GTs for this year's race. He was holding his own, but as is starting to become an all too frequent sight, the Porsche just being dropped quite visibly by the Ferrari and the Ford GT.
Yeah, I misled Jeremy, by the way. Last lap it was 63 that came in. That was the car, the 63 Corvette of Antonio Garcia, and Ollie Gavin still out in the 64 car. And Ford and Ferrari certainly have the performance upper hand in the GTE Pro class. Well, the whole idea again of the WTO's rule makers is to allow you to bring any kind of car and then to try and balance power, weight, speed across the class, and it doesn't seem as though they've quite managed to get it right, because Ford and Ferrari, whenever they have the opportunity, can leave the Porsches, the Corvettes and the Aston Martins behind.
Just got a good illustration there. We saw Sam Bird's Ferrari coming out of the Porsche curves, running very wide beyond the white line onto what is deeply corrugated tarmac. It sends an awful vibration that ricochets through the whole car, shaking your teeth. And what happened there is he was passed in the middle of the corner by the LMP2 car in front, and that, even to a GT car, that, you know, they have less downforce than the prototypes, but they still rely on downforce quite a lot, and when you follow so closely behind, you lose that. So we'll come through the left-hander with an arm full of understeer, unable to keep the car on the line he was aiming for.
Well, again, more LMP2 battles. This is the Panis Barthez car. That's been lapped, in fact. So number 23 car, or was it? Was that? No, that's 25 behind. So this is the battle for 10th place. Paul Chatan ahead of Andrea Pizzitola. And Nico Lapierre in 36, in fact, was not lapping them. He's jumped both of them. That dark blue car is the Alpine Nissan of... 36 cars just moved up 2 spots. Now, our GT Pro battle, you were saying Sam Bird in 4th position in the Ferrari. The classes have been led by Richard Westbrook's 4th, James Collado and Giancarlo Fisichella 2nd and 3rd for Ferrari. Birdie in 4th place for the Ferrari team, Dirk Muller's Ford and Earl Bamber's Porsche 5th and 6th. And of course, this is very different from what his day job is, Sam Bird. It's hard and a bit questionable to argue what his day job is. Is his day job racing an AF called Ferrari in the World Endurance Championship, or is his day job racing for DS Virgin in Formula E? But you can hardly imagine 2 more different kind of atmospheres to be in terms of the noise and the feeling of the car.
Yeah, but that's what I love about the career of so many guys that are able to be... Oh, just we look down at the bird's eye view.
Now there's a spill, and there's is that the fire we're worried about? Has fuel spilled on the red hot brakes, or was that just a stab of flame from the side exhaust? Whatever, they're trying to get the Beechstein car, Andrew Howard and crew. Oh, that's not a camera shot. Even though after 2 hours of the race, that really gives you the willies. The Beechstein Aston Martin heads back out. That's an AM Clark car. Andrew Howard, reigning British GT champion, sharing with Liam Griffin and Gary Hirsch. And in fact, his British GT champion partner is also in the race, also racing in an Aston Martin, just not in the same team. Paul-Luc Chatan just holding off Antonio Pizzitola. But you can see the Alpine that was behind is now vamoosed, absolutely cleared off.
Yeah.
And that was Nico Lapierre, which is hardly a surprise. He was one of Peugeot's works drivers. He raced Peugeots for Hugues de Schoenack as well. Lapierre is an absolutely A-grade Platinum Plus driver. You could put him in a Toyota, a Porsche or an Audi, and he certainly would match anything they've got in terms of driver lineup.
Yeah, and Pizzitola there, just in that lighter blue Ligier running behind in the shot we're looking at. He is teammate to Britain's greatest ever Olympian, Sir Chris Hoy, who I was chatting to earlier on, looking cool as a cucumber as he just made a few final changes to his seat insert. Pizzitola charges down the inside in the braking zone, down into Mulsanne corner. A nice clean textbook move there, no defensive driving from the Barthez car in front. Everybody wanting to keep as clean as possible at this early race, because we've got an awful long way to go.
And tires. Angle Tires.
Le Mans live on Eurosport, continuing our coverage of the 24-hour race, the world's greatest endurance motor race. Looking here at one of our LMP2 battles, the G-Drive Ligier Nissan in front of number 47, Oreca prototype. This is for 1, 2, 3, 4th in the class. René Rast in the orange G-Drive car ahead of Richard Bradley, last year's Le Mans winners. And in front of them, 42, that is Johnny Kane, Ulsterman Johnny Kane in the Gibson Nissan. The Gibson originally a Reynard chassis dating back to 2000 and still highly A, sexy, and B, very, very competitive. He lies third in class behind Matthias Besch and Roberto Meri, who are both in Oreca chassis built by Hugues de Schonach's team here at Le Mans. In fact, almost all the LMP2 cars are built here in Le Mans, because the Ligiers are built by Onroc Engineering, which is the sort of remains of Pescarolo here, and they are also based at the Technopark at Le Mans.
I don't want to harp on about it too much, but fantastic. I'm going to anyway. Really, I'm just keeping an eye on Jake Dennis, because he's in the midst of traffic there. It won't be something that he's experienced previously in his single-seater career, as successful as he's been. To find yourself making your Le Mans debut, he took the start of the race. He had to face the most challenging mixed conditions, including horrendous rain, and he's there in the middle of multi-class battles, multi-class traffic, and he was working it very cleverly, getting out of the way of the prototypes without impeding his own progress, and just ever so subtly wafting the car across the road to make it clear to the GT cars that the line was very much his into the next corners. This is a hell of a debut, and so far he and Mike Conway are my standout drivers of the race.
Well, you can hardly imagine, looking at the track now, that at 3 o'clock this afternoon it was barely survivable, never mind raceable. We had the safety car out for 50 minutes. We had one green flag lap in the first hour of, quote, racing. And suddenly the track has become dry and very raceable, and the pace is really reflecting that. We're down into with our race leaders, 3-minute 27s. Brendan Hartley leading for Porsche, Mike Conway second for Toyota, Loic Duval third for Audi. In the LMP2 class, just as tight a battle.
And talking of fast lap times, Brendan Trullier has reset the fastest lap of the race. 6 laps down he may be, but a 3:24.363 last time around for the Frenchman in car number 7. So still a 3-second lap lead now for Brendan Hartley in car number 1 over for Porsche over the Toyota of Mike Conway. Loic Duval there is closing in a little bit over the last couple of laps. He's within a couple of seconds again now in third place in car number 8. There's a big gap, 22 seconds still back to Sebastian Buemi in the second of the Toyotas, and then another 12 seconds back to the second of the Porsches, Romain Dumas. And I'm certainly surprised to see how the differential in speed between each of those two teammates.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Jeremy. Just again, Loic Duval doing what we've seen him do a couple of times already this race, putting the whole car off onto the side of the road. And it looks like it's tarmac and it should be no problem. You're just going over a painted white line, but it's not. It's coarse surface over there with loose stones. If he continues to do that, I really feel he is rolling the dice and upping the risk of getting a puncture.
Well, you have to, though, don't you? You can't avoid using the runoff areas when there is this much traffic. You just have to kind of hope that it's all going to be okay.
Well, during the course of the race, obviously a lot of people do it, and eventually it clears up and it's quite a clean surface to use. But right now he is just 2.4 seconds behind Conway's Toyota, and having to take every opportunity he can to keep in touch.
Earl Bamber towing up behind the number 71 Ferrari of Sam Bird, pulls out of the slipstream with a speed advantage, hits the air, has to tuck back in again. Didn't quite have enough speed or room, but he is all over Birdie's Ferrari at the moment. Earl Bamber, one of last year's race winners. Nick Tandy is here as well, and their partner in the car is in Baku in Azerbaijan, because that's what he has to do for his day job.
Amazing, isn't it? Even in the slipstream, I mean, wow, am I having to eat humble pie for my words earlier on. As he pulls out of the slipstream, is he able to have, does he have the crunch? He does.
Wow,
Just when I was about to say that he can't make the pass on the Ferrari, he can. But this isn't a 4.88.
It is, because it's a pro car. He had the line and he had the grip under him, and Sam was offline going into Indianapolis. Do you want to go into Indianapolis offline? No, you have to roll off the throttle. Because Earl got on the outside going into the corner. He had the grip on the road, he had the line, he had the only survivable line at full speed, and so Birdie, okay, let him go, I'll sit behind him and we'll go and have another go at it.
Curious to know though what's happening to Sam Bird, because his last lap around was a 3 minutes 58. The last lap around for Earl Bamber was a 3:57.3, which is his best lap of the race so far. The leaders, meanwhile, in GTE Pro, Richard Westbrook, that would be right now in 69. He's just had his best lap of the race at 3:54.7 last time.
And a 56 this time, and a 55 for James Collado, who's second. Could we venture the option that perhaps they haven't got the ideal slick on for these conditions, because the track was probably, I don't know, at least 10, maybe 15 degrees cooler when it started going wet to dry? Would they have gone for a hard slick if it had been dry all the way, and they went for a soft slick, which is maybe starting to yield a little in its second stint?
I mean, the sun is out and the temperature is definitely picking up. If they went for the harder slick tyre compound, you know, a stint and a half ago,
it might, well, the hard would be better now, but the soft, I'm saying, if they went for the soft because the track temperature was so low, maybe now it's just actually starting to give up more than a hard would have done. But maybe a hard wouldn't have survived because the track temperature was so low when they made the call to slicks.
Well, we're seeing a lot of fastest laps of each individual car's race panning out at the moment. The timing screens are peppered with blue. That means it's the fastest lap that car has set so far, especially so in the LMP2 category.
And a slew of driver changes as well. Ryan DL, first stint for him in the 31 car, I think. Ho Pin Tung is out in 35. Jeroen Bleekemolen in the 48. Nick Johnson, this is the Bicolors racing car that caught fire in the first night's qualifying session. Nick Minascia now in the BR01, the SMP Racing LMP2 car, so he's also, I think, doing his first stint. And on pit road, but 7 out, a very delayed car that has yet to trouble the top 50, Jeremy.
Very fast as well, because Brendan Trulli just set another fastest lap of the race before he comes into the pit lane now with a 3:23.524. That compares to our race leader last time around. We turned a 3:30 in traffic there for Brendan Hartley, but Brendan Trulli doesn't seem to be finding any traffic his last 3 or 4 laps, because he set a new fastest lap of the race in 3 last 6 laps.
That's quite some drop-off of pace at the front of the field, isn't it? Although Brendan Hartley, as I say, just punches in his fastest Sector 2 time.
Where has the number 7 car been for 6 laps? Not on the same set of tyres, whereas all the leaders have been on the same set of slicks since it went wet to dry. That car was in the garage. Guaranteed it's on the right tyres for a hot track, not a cold, damp track.
And
so
the
he's got better tyres. And he's got turbochargers to work, which he didn't have before. But I guarantee if they are on a softer wet for the wet to dry period, he's not. He's on a harder wet for the hotter track. And that is why he's using the car to such great effect.
Yeah, and also, you know, they're sitting in the garage with time to make small setup tweaks if they want to, whilst they're also repairing the car, and they might just say, well, let's take a gamble, we're going full aggressive dry race setup.
Yeah,
and that in itself is worth probably a couple of seconds a lap over a compromised setup that has to deal with some inevitable rain that we knew before the race started we were going to have at some point.
And Sam, you was talking about blue lap times showing up. It's just done that, exactly that for each of the top 3 cars. Brendan Hartley just turned his best lap of the race, a 3:24.9. Second place car, Mike Conway, 3:24.8. And the third place car of Loic Duval in the Audi 325.4. That is his best lap also.
And look at this, 3 wide behind Conway, because here comes Loic Duval in the number 8 Audi. He's not hanging around, is he? There's an LMP2 battle still wheel to wheel down the straight, and Mike Conway down into the first chicane, just inches in front of Loic Duval. There was less than a second between them line. Those red lights on the side of the car, that denotes that it's an LMP1 class car. 1 light for your class leader, 2 for second, 3 third. Well, Mike Conway setting the timing screens alight, trying to close down race leader Brendan Hartley. Let's go down to the Toyota pit, catch up with Conway's teammate Kamui Kobayashi.
Kamui, you've had a lot of experience in Formula One, but this is your first time at Le Mans in an LMP1 car. How are you finding it?
Yeah, I'm not street racing yet for today, but I think actually we're pretty good. So, you know, I think it's just we keep going and we see what happens. It's still a long way to go. So you cannot say too early moment, you know, but I think I'd say we're in good shape.
Well, definitely Mike Conway was doing some very impressive times in the changeable conditions. Do you feel you have a good balanced car for this race?
Yeah, I think any condition we have practiced, I think we are quite strong. I think we're confident.
From Kamui Kobayashi, we saw a change for second in the GTE class between the 2 Ferraris. The red car of Giancarlo Fisichella right in front of us now as we ride on board with Britain's James Collado. Dirk Muller lies 4th for Ford, Sam Bird 5th for Ferrari. Earl Bamber still can't get back past Birdie's car. He is 6th in the Porsche, but it is Richard Westbrook's number 69 Ford that is the class leader in the GTE Pro class, and he is the better part of a minute in front of this all-Ferrari battle for second place. And of course that reflects 50 years ago when Ford brought GT40s to Le Mans to beat Ferrari, to wipe the smile off Enzo's face when he refused to sell the company to Henry Ford. And it is those numbers on the Fords, 66, 67, 68, 69, that reflect the years in which Ford won Le Mans outright with the GT40s. Well, there is yellow highlights. Is that 69? Which of the Fords has got the yellow highlights? I've got to check my sponsors guide. It's 69. That was the race leader in. So they have closed a lot on the Ford because he was supposed to be a minute in front. Who was the spinner?
That was, I didn't quite see the side of the car, so it was one of the LMP2 cars down at Mulsanne.
Well, these 2 Ferraris battling for second in the GTE Pro class. See the Ferrari in front, the red car runs up over the curbs, loses a bit of grip, not enough room down into Arnage for James Collado to get back past. But the Ford in front of them, that shot, that last shot, that was the class leader that started the lap a minute in front. So there may be drama boiling there. Battle for second. We saw the 8 of Loic Duval closing in on car number 6 of Mike Conway. Remember before the pit stops, the engineer coming on and saying to Mike, are the tyres good for another stint? He said, yes, I think so. Well, they're going to survive, but they do seem to be losing a bit of pace. Here's the number 64 Ferrari that came in with that left front corner problem earlier on and is down in, I think it's about 59th place or 60th place.
And that battle we were watching here for the second place overall between number 6 Toyota Mike Conway and Loic Duval in the Audi car number 8, they are inching closer and closer and closer to our race leader Brendan Hartley. You can't quite see him in that picture there, but the gap has come down.
There he is.
5 laps ago it was 5 seconds between first and second. Now it's less than 2.
Yeah, I'm intrigued as to why the gap, why Brendan's cushions keeps fluctuating. His pace has been fluctuating by as much as 5, 6, 7 seconds a lap, and I just wonder if they've got an issue perhaps with a hybrid system where they have to manage perhaps a battery or an issue in something in the recovery system.
Well, I think it might be traffic related, but on the other hand it could be down to tyres as traffic as well. Welcome back to our coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, looking at Mike Conway and the race leader, car number 1, Brendan Hartley. Remember, Conway came in for fuel a couple of laps after the Porsche, and then Hartley got back in front. Conway dropped into second place in front of the Audi of Loic Duval. Now he's shaken off Duval. That's the third car in your shot with the Krone Racing MP2 car behind it. He's put Duval about a second and a half, maybe 2 seconds behind him, but he's taken 6 seconds out of Brendan Hartley in the last half dozen laps. Mike Conway again flying in the Toyota and will go further. The Porsche will need to pit for fuel, but by that time, Mike Conway, who's just set the race's fastest lap last time round and is again going quicker, will have taken the lead away without the need for the Porsche to pit. The Toyota is absolutely charging at the moment. Sam Hancock, you were saying already that Mike Conway is the star so far in his reasonably priced car, and it looks like he intends to get Brendan Hartley before Hartley pits.
I think what we heard a little snippet of Mike on the radio earlier on when he was asked about the tyres and their condition and the ability for him to use them for another stint, and he was just so chilled out. There's a number 8 Audi of Loic Duval robbing us from a fantastic on-screen duel between the top 3 that was separated by just 3 seconds. Loic Duval into pit lane now for a stop. Will this also be a driver change and I guess a tyre change?
This is the second stop, so this is the end of his second stint, so he could well stay in. We were asked on Twitter, now that it's not raining, why are the rain lights on? Clearly Eduardo Freitas is reading our Twitter feed, because on the race director's screen it now says, as race was declared wet, race lights must stay on as per regulations, which means if you turn them off, they're going to black flag you and putting you into the pits to turn them back on, or they give you a black and white flag.
So what happens when you have a 24-hour race that just happens to start in the pouring rain, an hour later is bright sunshine and continues to be bright sunshine for the next 23 hours?
It means that the race director doesn't have to red flag the race for rain. Should it rain, he also doesn't have to tell you to turn your red lights on because they're on already. So it's one less piece of homework to do. Looking at the battle for first, second and third in the GTE Pro class with an LMP2 car in it. Third is the multicoloured Ferrari, that's Great Britain's James Calado. Second in the, of course, Rosso Corsa red Ferrari is Giancarlo Fisichella, because an Italian wouldn't drive any other colour Ferrari. But the leader is Richard Westbrook, and he is now 1.8 seconds in front of the Ferrari. He was 10 seconds clear of anybody, and Richard Westbrook, after the pit stops, was nearly 20 seconds clear of the rest of the field. That's a massive margin the Ford has lost.
Well, it's been fairly constant over the last half dozen laps or so. It's just come down a little bit now. It was about 2.5 seconds, certainly less than that right now, but certainly those 3 cars are edging well away from Dirk Mueller, the pole sitter, now in car number 68. I was just going to say, Brendan Hartley there, new purple sector time in lap in the middle sector on this lap. That is the main straight all the way down to Mulsanne, and also just to make a note, the Audi there was on pit lane on lap 36, so this time it went 13 laps between pit stops, whereas the last sequence it managed only 12 laps.
Yeah, and we just had the third place GTE Pro car, James Calado. We're running on board with him now, coming into pit lane. Kind of incredible racing. We've been going for 2.5 odd hours. In the overall rankings, the top 2 are separated by just 2.096 seconds. In the GTE Pro class, the top 2 are separated by 1.7 seconds.
Really, really close race all the way through the field. James Calado gets out, double stinting the GT car. Didn't see whose helmet was getting in, but it will tell us in a moment or two. Ford leading, Ferrari second, and now Ford up to third with Dirk Mueller. Sam Burns, Ferrari in fourth, ahead of Earl Bamber, and the 66 car of Olivier Pla behind.
That's early for number 51, certainly, because it was last in lap 23, so that's only 10 laps.
Number 1 car, Brendan Hartley on pit road. Your leader is in after setting a fastest second sector of the race, and that means Mike Conway did not do him before the pit stop, but does now take the lead. Conway lead gain for Toyota. This is what, our 5th, 6th, 7th or something change of lead in the first couple of hours of the race. And this will be a full service. Driver's door still not open, so triple stint for the Porsche driver. 8th change of lead, goodness me. And don't forget, the first hour of the race were no changes of leaders. We had count them, one lap of quick flag racing. So staying in.
Brendan looking pretty fresh.
Yep. Not
even a sign of a bead of sweat, let alone any stress or panic on his face. Eyes wide open, clearly super focused. But I spoke to him earlier on, he seems pretty chilled. He's a chilled out guy at the best of times.
I've never seen him anything other than chilled, even when he was really under stress. There's the Krohn Racing at Ligier Nissan in front of him, car number 40. Tracy Krohn shares with Nick Johnson and Joao Barbosa. Tracy Krohn didn't really look like he was particularly enthused by the parade last night, I have to say. He couldn't get out of there fast enough, but the other two were having enough fun.
Loic Duval just came by our commentary booth, hammering the curves at the forward chicane. The particular corner that we're sat here in front of is the last tight left-right. And it's changed over recent years from being a very soft, wafting kind of corner that you just float the car over to very aggressively corrugated curves that can rattle the suspension and ultimately cause fatigue and potential failure late in the race.
As we sit ready with the #1 car, Brendan Hartley, down the straight, showing you just exactly what sort of traffic you have to deal with. One of the ESM LMP2 cars finally had to turn into the corner. He didn't cut him off, but he had to get round. And Brendan Hartley was aware that that was going to happen. Liz Halliday is in the pit lane. We're going to catch with her and chat to Nico Prost. See what his thoughts are on the race so far.
Well, Nico, I'm sure this year with the works teams fielding just 2 cars each, there must have been some hope that maybe you guys would get on the podium. Unfortunately, that's been held up for your team. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's only the beginning, so let's wait. But we had a small issue with a sensor on the engine. So we had to pit and lost about 3 laps. Could have been worse if it had not been under safety car. So, you know, let's keep going and we can still make up some ground.
And how do you feel cars are compared to last year? I know it's always a struggle as a Private 2 team against the work cars, but how do you feel you compare this year?
I think we've made some improvement. Obviously, the relationship with Dunlop is very new, so there's still a lot to learn, but I think the race is okay. You know, we just need to keep going and not have problems.
Okay, well, we wish you a lot more luck. Thank you.
Well, it's always tough when you start the race and you are immediately on the back foot. And so Nico Prost and his teammates are going to have to be as sympathetic to the car as humanly possible, because they're going to have to flog the living daylights out of it in a race where everything is already being driven at 110%. Martin Haven, Sam Hancock in the big
a lap.
In the Ford GT, and Giancarlo Fisichella all over him in the Ferrari, and Hugh, we've been talking about the 50th anniversary of Ford coming here with the GT40, winning the first of 4 consecutive races. That was Ford versus Ferrari, and we're back here half a century later with the same battle.
Yeah, good, isn't it?
It is good, isn't it?
It really is very good. It's very exciting having Ford back. And with a thing that looks remarkably like a car new 50 years ago.
Well, doesn't it, though? It is a stunning looking weapon. Of course, they could have made the 488 look a bit more like a 250 LM, but it's not that far away, really, is it?
No, it isn't.
Fisichella on the gravel exiting the final corner. That's how hard he's pushing. He does not want Westbrook to get away in traffic, but Westbrook got the brakes there in the traffic. Fisichella in the Ford curve, in the Porsche curves rather, being dive bombed by prototypes, which just made him change his line. They're going by the B-Steen Aston. That's an AM-class Aston Martin in the GTE class. And Westbrook, and again, you know, we talk about drivers braking cars. They often break it on other cars, and this is why the drivers now are so much of a part of it, because you've got to avoid traffic in real pressure situations like that.
Yeah, for sure. What I was saying earlier was the biggest change these days is the gearbox, because we always had problems with gearboxes. But that was when they had gear changes and drivers had to be correct in their gear change. Of course, they never were. But now technology does it for them, and they flick it. And you rarely hear, I mean, you do hear obviously of gearbox failures, but compared with the time that we're talking about in the 80s, it was a permanent happening, really.
Well, from time immemorial, and indeed, of course, the race was set up in 1923 to prove that cars could continue for more than the random 20 minutes, and you didn't need a chauffeur to fix it every time you wanted to take it out. It's always been a test of machinery, a test of man and machine. And the endurance element now, definitely, in most cars, keeping it off the barriers and off other traffic is one of the the overriding concerns for all the drivers. Again, looking at the GT lead battle, the Ford of Richard Westbrook. It's almost as if Fisichella can cast his line and just reel himself in onto the back of the Ford. The Ferrari has the pace. He hasn't found the break in the traffic, but now, Sam, he is getting close. He's in the tow, and he will gradually start to pick up pace from the full slipstream as well, as the Jota sport car of Jake Dennis tries to go by. And there's a salient indication of how hard it is for LMP2 drivers. They've got better brakes, they've got better aero, but you get along a GT car at top speed and it's all but impossible to get by them. You really have to outbrake somebody in, quote, a slower car.
Well, we've been saying that the Ford GT looks a little bit like the Ford GT/prototype car, both in the way its aesthetics and also in the way it seems to handle some of the longer, quicker corners like the Porsche curves. And you've just seen how not exactly easy Jake made it look to get past it. Fisichella dropping back a little bit. He'll be hoping to pull that back in soon enough.
Angled tires. Tires.
Welcome back to Eurosport's live coverage of Le Mans. Change of leader. Back in front is the #1 Porsche of Brendan Hartley, Mike Conway, and his Toyota teammate Sebastian Buemi just stopped for fuel, both having done 14 laps in. They dropped down to second and fourth position once more with the Audi R18 of Loic Duval in third place. And our our GTE Pro battle still continues. Richard Westbrook inches in front of Giancarlo Fisichella as the leaders carve through cars left, right and centre. A couple of quick Twitter questions we're going to ask.
Just before you do, sorry to interrupt, I just saw the 51 Ferrari, that's Gianmaria Bruni just coming into the pit lane, and we think, Jeremy, don't we, that car there, of course, the car was already quite recently.
That's its fourth stop, Jeremy.
Yes, exactly. It was in only 2 laps to go, so that clearly, I don't know whether it could have been a penalty.
Here we are, it's in the garage. It is the equivalent of behind the wall. It is in the garage. Somebody, Jacob at Jakeface picks me up and says, apparently we can't have 23 hours of bright sunshine at Le Mans.
Yeah, it can be difficult.
What do the row of lights in the Porsche 919 signify? Jason Green wanted to know. Well, there are colours on the numbers of the cars. Coming towards us, the #1 Porsche, red background to the number. You can see the Ford coming towards us, the GT Pro leader, green background to the number. Red backgrounds to the number on the door panel and on the nose, LMP1. Blue backgrounds, LMP2. Green backgrounds, GTE Pro. Orange backgrounds to the numbers, GTE AM class. So each class has a different colour. On the side of the car, there are little LEDs, circular LEDs. The leader in each class will have one single light in its class colour, so red for LMP1, blue for LMP2, and so on. 2 lights for second place, 3 lights for third place, none illuminated if you're outside the top 3. So the Audi there, #8, third in its class, red lights signify LMP1, third in LMP1. So you can see from the trackside, day or night, the car you're looking at is in the top 3 of which class it's in or not. Now, if you're asking about other lights, vertically down the tail of the Porsche and the Audi and the Toyota in the tail, that's where they have their rear lights, and those are flashing because you had to have your rain lights on at the beginning of the race, and the regulations then state you must keep your rain lights on. As our GTE Pro leader has come down pit road, Richard Westbrook is in, and our overall race leader Brendan Hartley continues through the Ford chicane. So Westbrook is in the Ford, and Giancarlo Fisichella now leads the race for Ferrari.
Following Richard Westbrook into the pits was the LMP2 car. That is the Murphy prototypes with Bleekemolen, Ben Keating and Mark Goossens. They are currently trying to find them. Yeah. Okay,
there has been a fire.
Down the order.
Oof. There has been a fire at the front of that. Oh, no, there hasn't. There's just been somebody who didn't quite have their F-stop set correctly. That looked like it was covered in extinguishing because it was bright white. It wasn't. It was overexposed. So which of the LMP2 cars was that? Was that 43, Felipe Albuquerque's car? Was that pushed back in? It was. I think that was the RGR Moran sport car, the Nissan, Ricardo Gonzalez, Bruno Senna and Felipe Albuquerque. They had trouble in qualifying as well. And that looks their top 3 LMP2 run might be taking a bit of a hit.
We've got an intra-team battle here between 2 teammates from last year, 2 of them that won the race outright. It was, as we see, the spinning LMP2 car.
We don't, because we're looking at the Ford's pit stop. There is trouble for the number 49 car. That's another Ligier, one of these stunning-looking LMP2 cars, and he's looped it around on the run out of Arnage, on the run down to Arnage, whatever. He's looped it around and was waiting for a gap in traffic, and that's the Michael Shank Racing Ligier with his HPD Honda. Now that's a very unusual engine combination in the LMP2 class, at least in World Endurance Racing rather than in IMSA Racing. And here we've got our 2 Pro class Porsches nose to tail.
Battle for 4th in class. That's Earl Bamber and Nick Tandy. So these guys won the race outright overall in LMP1 last year. They've been moved to the GT class cars. This is not really Porsche's full-on factory team effort, but it is a heavily supported factory factory supported effort. Is that correct to say?
It's as factory as you get in GT. It's run by Olaf Manthey Racing, and Manthey has been the man since they were running the UPS turbo cars at the end of the 962 era. He brought GT class 911s with essentially 962 turbo motors in the back, and they've been racing under Olaf Manthey's banner all the while. But as you say, they are the outright race winners from last year. Nick Tandy in one car, chasing Earl Bamber, his teammate. They stood and they shook the podium in the first, they shook the champagne in the first podium ceremony last year, meaning they were the overall winners. Now they're racing against each other for honours in the GTE Pro class, and behind them, closing in, is another of the Fords, and that will be Olivier Pla in the 66 car. So he is hoving up behind Tandy, even as Tandy pulls out and does not get a run on Earl Bamber. This is the quickest part of the circuit now. Maximum velocity for these cars comes just before Indianapolis. You can see the Panis Barthez prototype, the LMP2 car there, only able to split the Porsches. Can't even jump two GT cars in one go. So down to Arnage. He's going to try and...
Got to be so careful here.
He's going to have to get them off the corner, isn't he? Yeah, and even then, rear-engine Porsche, great traction, good grunt from that car. The prototype's got barely any more horsepower.
Yeah, you have to wait until the GT cars start to run into sort of too much aerodynamic drag before, as we just see the Risi Ferrari. That's the number 82
That's
car.
our leader.
Yeah, that's on schedule.
Coming into pit road.
Yeah, once again, a lap later.
But he was really hot into the start of the pit lane speed limit there. Had both front wheels fully locked up, smoke belching from them. So I hope he's due for a tyre change as well, because that'll be good for nothing.
You can see all the rain lights on the cars in front flashing furiously, and the race director did point out to everybody about half an hour ago, you must leave your rain lights on. They all have headlights on anyway. In comes 92 Earl Bamber, and he comes in from what was fourth. Nick Tandy stays out. There's Giancarlo Fisichella, and that red Risi Competizione Ferrari was the leader in the GTE Pro class when he brought it onto pit road.
Third place in GTE Pro, Sam Bird's Ferrari just came into pit lane as well.
They're all piling in, aren't they? Dirk Muller stays out in the 68 Ford that started on pole. He set the pole position, and he is the man who now leads the race.
Brendan Hartley's just done his fastest lap of the race at 3 minute 23.3. So these are really suitable conditions. That heavy rain earlier will have washed the rubber from the road. We've now had a few hours of dry running, 60 cars, or 60 or so cars circulating, gradually laying more and more rubber onto the racing line, increasing its grip level. The temperatures will be quite warm, but we're moving into the evening now. It's getting a little bit cooler with every passing hour.
Let's get down to board and hear from Richard Westbrook.
Well, Richard, a bit of an uncharacteristic start to the Le Mans 24 hours, but the car is obviously going very well. You've just got out of the car from the lead.
Yeah, definitely uncharacteristic. It was pretty wet out there in the beginning, but it seemed to take a long while to go green. I thought we could have gone green earlier. So we were on the full wet, and by the time we went green, it was nearly dry. So, I mean, that screwed us. So, you know, it's good though. I mean, the car's not bad. It's we're fighting with the Ferraris. I mean, who would have thought? It's a long way to go. It doesn't mean anything at the moment. Car's a little bit tricky to drive. Balance not too bad. Track's going to rubber in some more. Should be better for us later on. So, all in all, quite satisfied.
And there were some last-minute restrictions put on both the Fords and the Ferraris. Do you think those are going to ultimately affect you, and can you talk us through what those were?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, all we can do is focus on our own job, and all I know is that everyone at Ford Performance has worked so hard to get the program where it is. And, you know, we've done a really good job, and this car is perfect for this track. A lot of thought went into that. We worked really, really hard for this, and yeah, we've been pegged back a bit, but so far it's not hurting us too much.
Great, thank you very much.
Well, this is always one for the hard question, and very hard for a driver to give a straight answer to that. They don't want to be involved in the in the end, Sam Hancock, it's nice to have a car that you feel might have a slight advantage. Nobody really wants cakewalk. Not here. You don't want to win Le Mans and everybody say, yeah, well, yeah, but you were 12 laps in front because you clearly had a car that nobody else could catch. What you want is a decent fighting chance. You want to win, especially if you come in here with a new program, one with history like Ford. You want to win a race that people will stand back and go, wow, that was a classic. That's what you want. You know, in the end, yeah, if you clear off by 12 laps.
But you say that, but if for some freak of the rules, whatever road car product you happen to have, you spy an opportunity to build just an epic car that moves the game on in class.
I'm not arguing that.
If they then pegged you back.
No, not arguing that, but you understand going into GT, the idea is you will be pegged back to try and even the performance of all the cars, because otherwise one manufacturer wins and all the other leave. Coming in is Dirk Muller in the Ford, the race leader, as we watch our LMP1 class number 7 car, the very much delayed Audi, trying to pick up a bit of pace. In the Risi Competizione Ferrari, Tony Vilander has now taken over from Giancarlo Fisichella, so it is the Finn who is flashing the headlights furiously at the number 84 machine. Now let's talk about the car a little bit. It's a car that one of the drivers here is a quadruple amputee. So he had a very rare disease he caught when he was on holiday a few years ago, which meant that his extremities of arms and legs were both amputated on both sides.
He's at the wheel now.
He is at the wheel now. So Richard Sosay is driving this car, even though he can't get himself in and out of it. He has to come to the pits and actually has to be reached out of the car, but is still using pressure pads that he uses with his legs and his arms to control the car. This is the most remarkable bit of technology and human refusal to give up that you can imagine. All right, the number 44 car may have lost a second coming behind him, and he may be a little bit annoyed with that, but that is the Garage 56 entry. A number of people have been asking, why is it on the entry list with a different colour to all the other classes? Well, because it is our, quote, Garage 56 entry. They'll use that for new technology, and whether it's in the car or the engine or whatever, and there's very definite new technology going on. Here's groundbreaking, the ability to drive a car for severely handicapped, physically handicapped drivers, which is directly transferable into road cars. So he is racing, and Sam, the ACO said, okay, you can come and you can drive, but you have got to set a minimum acceptable lap speed, and he is able to do that. This is not just he's going to meander around and get in the way. He's got to keep a pace up, and of course the other two physically fully able drivers will be able to do that with no problem. So
we're getting a bit of a look there. Oh, this is potentially they're doing a driver change. We get to see.
They're going to put him into the garage.
Out of the car. But we've got a bit of a look there at sort of what I call contraption that replaces the steering wheel. I understand that he steers more like with a hand on a tiller
with
as
a joystick
to a wheel. Yeah,
kind of like a computer game or flying an Airbus.
Which in part explains why, as we saw him come into pit lane, he was a little offline, a little slow getting around the first tight chicane, because it is so tight there. It's much more so than it looks at that front-facing camera angle. And he said that for at Silverstone in the previous round, for example, where he really struggled was around the tight hairpin, but there aren't any corners like that here, which is true. But I just wonder if the two chicanes coming into the pit lane are the ones that challenge him really the most out of the whole lap.
And he has turned laps in just over 4 minutes, which is, you know, it's sort of 15 seconds off the ultimate pace. That to me is just astonishing. You're quicker than quite a few GT cars.
Well, Memo Rojas, fully physically able, has just done a 358.9, and he's not a slouch. So, you know, those are good, acceptable gentleman driver laps.
Yeah.
The fact that he's got neither hands nor feet makes it, frankly, just almost unfathomable how it is that he can do that.
And just a very quick note before we go to commercial break, that was the Camaro 44 that came right behind him. That is the LMP2 class leader.
Or was. It's now being led by 26 René. Oh no, it's not. 47 Richard Bradley in the KCMG car.
I think I've never made a secret the Tour de France is everything for my cycling career. It's what I base every single year around. I love going to France every year, racing the biggest bike race in the world. The Champs-Élysées is a spectacular sprint, whatever the year, you know. People who aren't interested in cycling, they watch the Tour de France, they know the Tour de France. The yellow jersey is it signifies cycling, you know.
Монумент истины приближается. Ноттингем, Англия. За неделю до Уимблдона устройтесь поудобнее и наслаждайтесь красивой игрой. С понедельника в прямом эфире на Евроспорт-1 ATP Ноттингем.
Welcome back live to Le Mans on Eurosport. Coverage of the 24 hours continues. Oh, for 24 hours, yes, that's what we do, isn't it? You can see our lead battle. Brendan Hartley in the... you can probably see it, I can't, squinting in the sunshine. Brendan Hartley leading the race for Porsche, Mike Conway second for Toyota, Loic Duval third. Toyota's Hugues de Schoenack, last one Le Mans, 25 years ago when he was running the Mazda program. Talking there with the man on the right-hand side, who's the boss of the WEC, Gerard Neveu, and President Fillon of the ACO in the middle, and President Jean Todt of the FIA. They're also chatting to their chief engineer. Now in the booth with us at the moment, Hugh Chamberlain, and a huge... That win for Mazda. Toyota were already racing then in Group C. They were racing at Le Mans. Nissan were racing in Group C and IMSA GT and were racing at Le Mans. And Mazda had been racing at Le Mans for many years and then came and won it. And no Japanese manufacturer before or since has ever managed to do so. I mean, that's a phenomenal achievement for what is the smallest Japanese car manufacturer.
It was quite remarkable, but I think the history was a bit different because the suggestion is that it was just a Group D car, but of course it wasn't.
No.
It raced in the Group C category. It raced in its own category because it was a rotary, and everybody argued like hell about whether a rotary was a proper piston engine and what capacity it had, and therefore how much fuel it allowed and all this sort of stuff. And they got a bit of a break because they were allowed to run at a different weight to an equivalently powerful motor car.
But boy, didn't they use it? I mean, the few Grand Prix drivers, and they drove the wheels off the thing like they wanted it to break before tea time.
Yes, and I'm not suggesting for a moment they didn't deserve to win. What I'm saying is it isn't quite as simple as it, and there was a manufacturer who went along, and because it was a beautiful motor car, and it was cleverly run, and it made a wonderful noise. It didn't rev to 25,000 as everybody thinks. It went to about 8. But because there's so many bangs on rotation, it just went to 25.
Exactly, you could hear that clear across most of France when it was running.
You could indeed.
And we're sort of at the same situation as we were in the Group C rules, where fuel consumption, getting the most bang for your buck, if you like, out of your propulsion units is what this is all about. And We were talking the other day about this hybrid technology, all of which is fast making its way into road cars. And the current generation of sports car racing is doing more for road car technology with the hybrid system, with energy recovery, with energy conservation, and with electronic advances than even anything like the disc brake on the D-Type. Because that was a massive step forward for road cars, getting disc brakes and that sort of safety level. And now all of this is a phenomenal potential energy saving for every single car manufacturer.
It is indeed, and I don't know because I'm not that technically minded, but I have a suspicion that there are a number of people in single-seater racings at the top end who are looking rather longingly at things that are happening in sports car racing, because
the freedom to invent is remarkable, isn't it?
It is. When I first saw the regulations for the prototype, I couldn't believe that anybody would actually take it up. But they have, and they've been horrendously successful. If there is such a thing, they've been very, very successful. Yeah. And we can now see that they are basically they're very reliable, and they have problems for sure. They are remarkably reliable cars.
Well, looking really now at the class that is close to your own heart, in the Group C days you were a real stalwart of the C2 category, which was predominantly the non-factory based and privateer class, and we've just seen the lead change in MP2, which is its spiritual success, I think we'd have to say. Yeah. And that has changed from the KCMG car. Richard Bradley just stopped and seems to have gone back out yet again, rather greedily hogging the car, and Roberto Meri in the number 44 Manor Motorsport car has again leapt to the top of the pile. The Alpine, the 36 car, this is in contention as well. Nico Lapierre has been doing a stalwart job in that. I'm not actually sure I've seen Matthias Pesch's number 46 car on camera, other than when the car's been passing it. That's the Thirier by TS car, the Ligier Nissan that lies in third. And in Orica Nissan that lies in third, rather in fourth place René Rast, the pole Citroën class in the number 26 car. It's one of the two SMP Racing BR01s. They are a Russian designed and built car. Nick Minasyan and you just saw Kirill Latigin are the two drivers in their two cars. But again, you know, this has always been the case, probably as long as you've been coming here, is that a bulk of the field in any year is made up of privateer teams running custom machinery with enthusiast gentleman drivers or wealthy drivers making up a fairly decent size of the field, and that's not to take anything away from them, because that's part of this racing.
Absolutely. And the old garagistes, as they used to call them here at Le Mans, are still allowed to come in, and they do have people come in who are really proper amateurs. But without C2 in Group C, there would have been no races.
Yeah.
Because there were barely more than 12 cars in C1, and the rest of the grid was C2. And it's the same here. With P2 is a very successful formula. Going on to that, for something you were saying earlier about how difficult it is for a P2 car to pass a GT car, it's going to be fun next year. They're going to have another 150 horsepower.
In the P2s or the GTs? Right, okay, so they'll have a little bit more. But that's going to make the hybrids, it's going to be even more of a struggle to get by a P2 car.
Oh, sure.
Because off boost, the hybrid will have less power than a P2 car.
And then, of course, what do they do with this, what they call P1 Lite, P1L? If the P1L, as they are at the moment, the Rebellions, they've probably got, I don't know, I have no idea, 600 horsepower, say. Well, the P2 is going to have 600 horsepower. That means the P1 Lite is going to have a good 700 plus. Yeah. Right, they can't be P1s.
Yes.
They'll just be swanning around with the P2 stuff.
P1.5.
P1.3.
Yeah. P2.-1 or something. Right. So, anyway, and again, it's balancing the amount of power. Obviously, every racing driver wants more power, more speed, because that's just the way it is, and that's the way cars develop. I mean, compared to the Ford GT40, which looks about the size of a Lotus Elise compared to the modern cars, these things are just... It's like looking at a commercial airliner from the 1960s compared to a commercial airliner nowadays. They do vaguely the same job, but not in even remotely the same level of efficiency. Niki Thiem and Stefan Mucker have battled and swapped positions. And that is in the AM class. Just watching the Pro class Aston Martin. Is that Nicky Team 95 has gone ahead, or got ahead of the Ford of Stefan Mucke. Mucke now back in front. Jared Neveu explaining things to Jean-Claude in the Rebellion garage, in fact, as we talk about Lindsay Owen-Jones there as well, the kind of one of the head of the regulatory groups for the World Endurance Championship. Himself a keen racer.
In a McLaren, I should remember.
Indeed. So Nick Team in the Dane train, Stefan Mucke back in front in the Ford. And the 67 car, the fourth of the Ford GTs, stopped early on with a gearbox issue and still outside the top 50. So that car is going to have a very, very, very long road to try and make the checkered flag. Not to say that it won't, but it is so far. In fact, it is 60th and currently last. 51 still in the garage. This has been in for a while, Jeremy Shaw, and in fact Jeremy hasn't got the headset on, Huge has. That has lost a lot of ground, and that was the Ferrari that Sam Bird was sort of battling for. Oh no, that was 71, so this is one that Jimmy Brew was battling in a top 6 position with.
Yeah, and both Ferraris have had difficulties, haven't they? They've both been in the pits for quite a long time, so yeah, that doesn't bode well. What does bode well though is the Porsche at the front of the field. Brendan Hartley, last time around yet again a new personal best lap, 3:23.222. He's done 3 personal bests now in his last 6 laps, extended the lead to 12.7 seconds. He's flying. We're going to take a quick commercial break.
Mobile Strike. Скачай и играй сейчас. Бесплатно в App Store.
Цезарь. И это, по-вашему, пятница? Играй вживую, чтобы жить. Встречайте! Новые сухарики «Хрустим» к пенному со вкусом крылышек барбекю. В пятницу самое то. Вот что я называю пятницей. Хорошо, Хрустим.
Может, скажем, что сегодня среда?
За каждой бутылкой Велкопоповицкий козел безалкогольное мастерство пивоваров, влюбленных в свое дело. Здесь мы вертимся, как белка в колесе. Работаем за вкусом. Несем груз ответственности. Для того, чтобы не хвастаться мастерством, а наслаждаться им вместе со всеми. Велкопоповицкий козел безалкогольное. Наслаждайтесь нашим мастерством.
Звучит как спорткар. Дарит чувство спорткара. Маневренный, как спорткар. И герб на нем свидетельство спорткара. Porsche Macan. Для тех, кто верит, что каждый автомобиль Porsche – это спорткар.
Едва возникнув, это чувство растет изнутри, пробуждая неудержимую страсть, пробирая до мурашек, заставляя пульс биться все чаще, чтобы вырваться на свободу и превратиться в скорость. Какое топливо заводит вашу машину? Porsche выбирает Экт Плюс от Lukoil.
Звучит как спорткар. Дарит чувство спорткара. Маневренный, как спорткар. И герб на нем свидетельство спорткара. Porsche Macan. Для тех, кто верит, что каждый автомобиль Porsche – это спорткар.
fastest man at Le Mans, Mike Conway, 3 minutes 22.15. New fastest lap of the race last time round, and the Toyota driver in second place, 8.5 seconds now behind Brendan Hartley, who is setting his own personal best in the garage on the left-hand side. Mark Webber and Mark Lee, one with the K, one with the C, and they are getting ready to take over their Porsches. Webber will take over from Brendan Hartley at the next stop, and Lee will take over the car of Romain Dumas, and down pit road comes the Audi number 8 of Loic Duval, so there will be a driver change there. We're going to try and grab a word with our race leader Brendan Hartley, but Jeremy Shaw, how soon till he is due in? I know you were going to tell me that.
Well, I was going to say that Loic Duval just brought the car on pit lane, but just immediately before that, on the Mulsanne, I believe, he'd been overtaken by Sebastian Buemi. So the second of the Toyotas had just moved into third place before the Audi came onto pit lane. And for the Audi, this is lap 49. So once again, a 13-lap stint for Loic Duval.
So again, the Toyota, which came back out after its stint in fourth, got ahead into third place before the pit stops rattled in. So, and this is what Mike Conway was trying to do to Brendan Hartley last time. He got within half a second of taking the lead before Hartley stopped earlier than the Toyota. So the Toyota as quick as anything out there and going further on fuel. Now, there's been a temperature warning to add to the troubles for the Bicolors racing car, the number 4 machine, which had a fire on Wednesday, didn't run most of Thursday, didn't get their third driver qualified in the dark, had to stop from the back of the field, was pushed off the grid, lost a lap not going up behind the safety car, and yada, yada, yada. Now, it wouldn't start when it was wet, it wouldn't go in the wet, and it caught fire. And now the wretched thing, the cockpit temperature is over limits, and they've been warned about that. And if it doesn't come back within limits, it will be brought into the lane until they can sort that out. So that is the sort of car that's just occasionally turned up on Hugh Chamberlain's watch and would refuse to behave itself.
Yeah, and it is quite warm. The sun is beating down now, so it is quite warm. And the Audis at Spa were having difficulties with cockpit temperatures. They were very, very close to the limit. I think they might even got a warning there. And so since Spa, they've added a little bit more cockpit cooling, i.e. ducting into the cockpit. But that, of course, causes a little bit more drag. And that's the last thing you want to hear at Le Mans.
Also lets a little bit more air in. And when it's raining, what's in the air?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, so the cockpit tends to get damper, and the heat of the driver inside and the cockpit can help with condensation, by which I mean help condensation form.
But this is such an interesting race right now. I mean, I think within this current stint, we've seen Porsche, I kind of realise the Toyota is going one lap farther on each of its pits, between each of its pit stops, and that spells bad news in the long term before the end of the race, as we see the number 1 Porsche onto pit lane.
Yeah, as you saw, the graphic stopped 11 laps ago, so this is the end of his 12th on fuel. Jeremy, the last time they did 13, back down to a 12-lap stint, unless your counting's wrong or our graphic is wrong. Not sure.
No, and that's interesting because he's been going super fast, trying, I think, to pull away because he realised they were already in trouble with the Toyota going 1 lap further, so they needed to start at the wick. But now, of course, it wasn't their fastest time a little while ago. It was the Toyota, so they're really in trouble. And now, because they were pushing so hard, perhaps they've had to come in 1 lap early than the previous 6, only 12 laps, as you say, on this stint.
It's not necessarily the case that they are emptying the tank every time they come in. So can they do 2 11-lap stints and have enough left for a 12 at the end? You know, so let's say you've got 80 litres and you use 72 of them, and then 72 the next lap, and then you've just got it for a final lap on the 3rd stint, or is it just that the pace they need to stay at the front, meaning they can't go the full 20?
This lap is 12 laps. The Toyota's doing 14.
Yeah, but hadn't the Toyota, didn't say Porsche did 13?
Yeah, the last 2 were both 13. This one's only 12.
Okay, so maybe that is a bit of an issue then, with the pace they need to stay with the Toyota is not enough.
Correct.
Well, whatever. Okay, I'm not even going to vent down that avenue because down that way lies trouble. Dave Rawding, you need a note from your mum if you only just got home. I think he was probably watching at work or listening at work. Car 67 is still racing. This is the Andy Prio, Marino Franchitti, Harry Tingle Ford GT. And that is the one that had problems early on, stopped behind the safety car, had another long stop after the safety car came in with gearbox issues. It's outside the top 50, but it is still going.
Look, scratch what I was just saying, because I was confused there by that graphic. It did indeed do 13 laps since last pit stop, did Brendan Hartley, so my apologies there. So it has upped the pace and is able to still do 13 laps, but that's still not the 14 that we've seen from the Toyota.
Ah, now that's interesting. So our graphic said this stint 11 as he came in. So that would have been the end of
his last pit stop of that 37 is now completed, going out 50.
Okay, very dues. One quick question. I'm going to throw this out there because people on Twitter know things that I don't. James Beckett was asking how many Knights of the Realm have raced in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. In fact, I'm going to widen that out. How many Knights of the Realm or similar titles in any nation? And he, of course, is thinking of Sir Chris Hoy, who'll be racing shortly. Danny Watts versus Ryan Dial. I don't think any of them have been knighted yet. Danny Watts in the open cockpit Gibson ahead of multiple Daytona, Sebring and now Le Mans winner Ryan Dial. Ryan Dial, one of the least well-known, most successful UK driving, if that makes sense. Would you agree, Dave Faulkner? Very few people outside of drivers in UK motor racing knew the name Ryan Dial, and yet he has won loads of GT and sports car races.
Well, of course, yeah, he came up by an American system, really. So I first met him there, I think, 2001. He did Toyota Atlantic over there when I was doing Indy Lights in 2001. I think he started then in 2002, I think.
Yep.
So most of his career has been there. He had a super career. He's been to Champ Car.
Yep.
And he's just picked up fantastic drives. He's been my teammate actually once, as is Dan Watts. So I know the two guys well. But Ryan's had a super career.
Sort of interesting, I thought, that having had associations with Daytona prototypes and being very much on Chip Gassie's radar as a rival and as a driver, that maybe did get approached to be part of the Ford program. Maybe he wanted to keep prototype racing. I'm not sure. That's not actually something I've had a chance to ask him about. But he would, in US racing terms, you've got to look at him as being way more than capable in terms of his own performance of being part of that team. As he's giving Danny a very tough time now. He did say this is position fifth place in the GT in the LMP2 class. On pit road, the Fabien Barthez Ligier. There's the number 2 Porsche in, Romain Dumas. Gets out, and in gets Mark Lieb. On board with the number 1 car. Come past the pits, and that means that Mark Webber, who stopped at lap 4, will go past into 3rd place, but it is still Toyota 1-2. Damien, we've seen the other cars stagger their stops, or the other teams stagger their stops for reasons either choice or things what have happened. But the Toyotas come in nose to tail on the same lap into the garage together.
Is that a show of confidence?
Well, it's just
I don't know. I mean, they certainly look fantastic. What's a little bit puzzling to me is that, and I thought was the same, slightly not as bad or not as can't get the word out. But in that last stint, the Porsche, when they did all their stops, the Porsche came out just 2 or 3 seconds, and it created a gap of something like 10 seconds or more. And then Mike Conway started to take it down, and in doing so set the fastest lap of the race so far. So I don't understand. They've got the pace, and maybe it was traffic related. I don't understand. At the start of this they seem to be dropping back a bit.
Toyota.
And then toward the end of the stints, they come on strong again. Either way, they're running an extra lap, which is going to be or 2 extra laps.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why at the beginning of the Toyota stint is they're sort of 3 or 4 or more laps behind on fuel and are a heavier car. Well, let's get down to the Porsche garage, catch up with race leader Brendan Hartley.
Brendan, you've just gotten out of the number 1 car leading this Le Mans 24 Hours, a fantastic battle with the Audi. How was that drive for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was nice to finally get the race underway. It was a bit too long under safety car in the beginning. The team did a good job in the first one. We bombed pretty early for slicks. I think it's the right call. I was pretty cautious in the first distance. It's the longest that we've been on tyres so far because we've had lack of testing and qualifying in the wet conditions. We didn't know how long to make the tyres last. And actually on the third stint, I gave it some herbs and the car was still feeling very good. So yeah, very positive for the rest of the race. So the pace was very good. I saw second stint they were right behind. So I haven't had a full debrief of what's been going on, but anyway, the time seemed very close and yeah, so far so good.
So based on what you've learned about the tires now and the performance of the other cars, what's going to be the strategy for the rest of the race with stints?
Yeah, I'm still not 100% sure if we can make the tires last one extra. I was feeling pretty good at the end, but they'll do a bit of analysis on the tires back behind the white doors there. And like I said, I haven't spoken to anyone yet. It'll probably depend a little bit on what the other guys are doing as well. But yeah, well, to be honest, I don't really know. We just got to, just keep it on track. And long way to go, but it's nice to be early on.
Great, thanks, Brendan.
Brendan, it is safe to say, gave it some jandle there in the final stint. And as you said, very truncated, dry and consistent condition running. Consistently, it was inconsistent. So everybody is a little bit it's less well prepared than they would like to be. They're not scratching around, they're not guessing. They would like things to have been a little more clearly worked out. Here is our second placed LMP2 car. I was just complaining, couldn't remember seeing him. Matthias Pesch, like Brendan Hartley, did the first hour behind the safety car. He's been in that TRA by TS Ligier Nissan the entire race, and the only time we've actually seen him is when he's been passed by front-running LMP1 cars, but he has now got Richard Bradley again hoving into view. The car behind him with the blue and silver, that's last year's winning team, KCMG, with their Oreca Nissan. So Matthias Pesch also in an Oreca Nissan, beg your pardon. So Thierry by TDS hanging on to second, Richard Bradley in third place.
Yeah, good battle for second place here, certainly, but the race leader in LMP2, that's Roberto Meri, and he is 52 seconds down the road for kind of a 44 for man of the team.
Yeah, John Booth and Graham Howden's team, first time at Le Mans, doing a staggering job so far, leading this race in LMP2.
Завтра в прямом эфире на Евроспорт 2. Этап чемпионата мира по супербайку в Италии.
At the heart of the Superbike World Championship with Elf.
The beauty of Le Mans 24 hours in slow-mo there as you rejoin our GTE Pro Class battle on board the number 69 Ford GT, second place. Was just handed over by Richard Westbrook, who started that car and brought it in as the class leader. Now driven by Kiwi Ryan Briscoe. And right behind him is American team Joey Hand in 68 car. The Dirk Muller started on pole position. Now we're seeing a lot of drivers that started the race running all the way through now until very nearly 4 hours. And that brings me very quickly to Phil Kinch, who said, what's the maximum amount of time any driver can be at the wheel during the 24 hours? Jeremy Shaw knows. 14
hours is the maximum drive time for any one driver. Also, he's not allowed to do any more than 4 hours out of 6. We're getting fairly close to that now, because this race is now 3 hours and 38 minutes underway. Okay, 50 minutes of it was under the behind the safety car, but still that counts drive time. Yeah. So we will, when Mike Conway comes in this time around, I expect him to hand over the car to the next driver. Same with Sebastian Buemi, and the gap between those two is out now to 24 seconds. Our first and second, because they yet have to make a fourth pit stop of the day.
We had a question a couple of minutes ago. Tell me if something exciting happens. James Beck wanted to know how many ennobled drivers on Knights of the Realm have driven at Le Mans. He's thinking obviously of Sir Chris Hoy, who has just taken on his car for his very first race stint at Le Mans. Johnny Dumfries, he is a laird. He wasn't quite a laird as Mike Conway, the race leader, comes on pit road. He wasn't a laird when he raced here in 88 and 89. Lord Selsdon raced here in 1949, and it's also been suggested that Nigel Mansell was an OBE at the time he raced here with the boys in a genetic, if that counts. Well, it's kind of there. So race leader on pit road, here he is. Mike Conway bails out 20 minutes short of the 4 hour mark, and in gets Kamui Kobayashi. So he takes over in the lead car. Right behind in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Is he coming in yet? He should be with us almost. He was 23 seconds behind. Oh, he is. There he is. It's Sebastian Buemi in number 5 car. I missed him going by our window. Okay, now, here's a question which we are going to be asked. White bodywork on the top of the wheel arch. Why is there that black square on the top of the one at the front? In fact, it's not a black square. It's a hole, and all prototypes have them. Because Damien Faulkner...
It's for safety reasons. It's so that air doesn't get trapped if the car becomes airborne. That it can flow straight. Or airborne in any shape or fashion, front ways, sideways, so the air can basically flow right through there. And they've made them bigger actually this year.
They have. They've made them a lot bigger. Nicholas Leutwiler going off in number 34 race performance. Orica Judd. That is the left-hander at Indianapolis. That is the corner actually called Indianapolis, and that was formerly a big gravel trap and is now a big tarmac area. So cars that go off, and they do, can be rescued easily even if they hit the tyres. Mark Webber is our race leader now in the number 1 Porsche. The 2 Toyotas having stopped. Now wait to see how many laps it takes for Toyota to get back in front. Number 51 Ferrari was back on pit road and out of the garage after a V-long stop. And I'm not getting anything in the Twitter sphere to indicate what was up with that Ferrari, but it was a very, very long stop. And was the BR01 that we saw in trouble, was that Mikhail Lishin? I'm not sure which of the two it was. Mikhail Lishin is at the wheel of the 27 car. Is he still? No, Kirill Ladigan is in 37. Nick Minasson is in 27. I'm guessing it was 37. That's all I'm guessing. I have forgotten Lord Paul Drayson and Sheila Marison. I have, haven't I? Well, I threw it out to everybody else and they'd forgotten it. Let's have a... Somebody's correcting our spelling. Christy McPherson, I can barely read that. We do not provide the graphics, by the way. We do not provide the pictures either. The only thing that Eurosport is responsible for is the noise coming out of your TV in terms of commentators and also our pit lane interviewers. All the other pictures are provided by Le Mans for broadcasters the world over. So whether they can spell Porsche on their graphics package or not is entirely up to them. We can. We don't need to. Let's get down to the pits and hear from Mike Conway, the standout driver in the first 4 hours here at Le Mans.
Mike, you've just gotten out of the car, a really fantastic stint out there. The fastest time of the race so far. The Toyota must be handling very well.
I didn't lose a fast lap, so that's good. I mean, the car seems to be getting better as the stints go on, so we just lost a little bit of time to Porsche on the first stint, and then we seem to catch a little bit towards the end again, so I think we'll always get that with first set of tires you're trying to go 3 stints with, so I think it will get better for us as the day goes on.
And we noticed that you decided to pit both cars together. Do you know if that was always a team strategy, or is that just how it worked out?
I mean, we're trying to extend our stints as long as we can. So to get one car that go a lap short, to catch it back up. So yeah, we're all trying to stretch our stints as much as possible. But no, it's good that we're 1-2, I think, at the moment. So yeah, hopefully we can get there.
Great, we'll let you have a rest. Thank you.
Excellent effort by Mike Conway, and that's a classic sign of a driver enjoying doing what he's doing. He just drives the wheels off the car and has no interest whatsoever in whether it's the lap time or not. It's just driving it as fast as he can. Changing position between two of our Fords, and the Fords with the identical red, white and blue livery. The red mirrors is the 68 car, the yellow mirrors is the 69 car, and that is the battle for second in the GTE Pro class. Ferrari's Tony Vilander leads, and the replay shows the red mirror 69, red mirror 68. I forgot now my own thing. Red mirror 68 getting in front of the yellow mirror 69. So Joey Hand ahead of Ryan Briscoe. And last time we saw them was from Ryan's car, watching Joey Hand closing out on him. So Joey Hand has moved that 68 car up into second place in the GT Pro class and fastest of the 4 Fords, Jeremy.
Yeah, those are the 2 Ford Chip Ganassi Racing USA cars, the number 66 and 67. The European car run regularly in the World Endurance Championship.
I just saw Joey Hand in the 68 car, 9 car rather, 68 car rather, second of the 2, riding the curbs a lot out of chicane, whereas Ryan Briscoe didn't have to, even though he's pulling away a little bit. 4-4, Manor Racing. John Booth and Graham Loudon's team racing here in the Le Mans 24 Hours for the first time. Roberto Merhi, we have barely seen, spoken his name a lot because he's leading the class yet again. Ant Davidson taking over the Toyota. Car number 5, Kamui Kobayashi has taken over number 6. And I thought they were in together. Whoa! And Roberto Merhi, again, fast approaching. Now he's within 16 minutes of the end of his drive time. So he comes into pit road. They are due a stop anyway. That will temporarily hand the lead to Matthias Pesch. But wow, Roberto Merhi attacking it there. He's in a Formula Renault 3.5 race.
Yeah, he's almost a full, well, he's a full minute now ahead of Matthias Pesch, and I expect Matthias Pesch also on pit lane this time.
Merhi, of course, coming from a dual campaign last year. Started the season racing in Formula Renault 3.5, and then was drafted into Formula 1, and then did both. Doing neither this year. He's doing endurance racing, and boy, his ability in a single-seater shows well. And Matthias Pesch, another young driver coming out of single-seaters, as so many have, to produce stellar sports car drivers. Damien Faulkner alongside me, Sam Hancock, both had single-seater routes, and so too does almost every platinum, gold, maybe most of the silver drivers as well in the field.
Anthony Davidson just made another pit stop.
Yes.
It was just 1 lap after his scheduled stop. Did we see that? I didn't see it.
Yes, we just saw him leaving, and I thought he'd been in either a very long time or really, because I said, didn't he stop the same time as Mike Conway?
Yeah,
we've heard from Conway, and Conway's gone to chat to the team and had a drink and a shower and a full meal, and all for threepence. So yeah, that was an unexpected stop for Ant Davidson. That's now the 5th stop for that car, and that has dropped it out of the rotation where it was second, third.
Yeah, it's a very quick stop, just 57 seconds. I think that's slightly more than just a drive-through.
It was a right tyre.
Yeah, it was.
I saw a right rear tyre going on. Now, it may have been the only tyre. It may not have been the only tyre. They may have had an immediate pressure or temperature warning on that tyre, and just brought him immediately rather than trying to make him survive 3 stints.
Yeah.
Fresh rubber going on 46. This is a Thierry by TDS car which has now spat out probably a fairly happy Matthias Besch and has taken on Gustavo Menezes. And there is Richard Bradley. Again, Richard Bradley, you know, I think he's arrowdited his door shut and he's stuck himself in the seat because he's been in there since the beginning. And again, when the car comes in, he will have to hand it over. Danny Watts is coming in his tracker car. He is going to hand that over. Ryan Diel has pitted in 31. Ligier. So Gustavo Menezes will cycle towards the front. Matt Rao has gone out to the number 44 car. That's the Manor car he's taken over from Roberto Meri. So Matt Rao, runner-up in last year British Formula 3 champion. Year before's British Formula 3 championship is the wheel of that car, and the leader Richard Bradley. He'll hand over, I think, to Matt Howson for the second stint in the KCMG car. Jeremy's waving his pen. Go.
Number 38 car, also the G-Drive Jota entry, just been on to pit lane Guido van der Garde. Running in the top 5 in the class.
Yeah, he's taken that over recently, hasn't he? I think they double stinted that, whereas everybody else has pretty much triple stinted. And in the garage, one of the factory Porsches. This is 91, and this is the car that we saw with Nick Tandy at the wheel. He is out. So Nick Tandy has brought the car in. It's been rolled back on the trolley dollies, and that is a fuel or oil tank or cooling issue. And I think that was Kevin Estre being bolted in, because there's called, no, it's brakes. Brakes as well. Is this full service? Doesn't have a hybrid system at the front. They've raced a 911 with a hybrid in Nürburgring 24 hours. But
to be honest,
not racing it now.
They might take advantage and just change the brakes even at this early stage. Because
okay, so at the front is the fuel tank and the oil and water coolers.
It's the boot.
Yeah, it is. It's the back to front boot. Benoit Trillier brings Audi number 7 down pit road for a scheduled stop. Jeremy, this car's still not in the top 50 of our 60 cars, and still no notification actually of any official abandon. We're now at 7 in the evening, 4 hours in a race that had an hour behind the safety car because of rain, and the black marker of doom has not yet left its ceremonial case.
Yeah, so which car were you saying there was on pit lane?
7.
7, yes. That is back. It is actually on the first page. It was up into 23rd place overall.
Oh my lord! So it is. I was looking on page 2, and it is. It's jumped all the way up.
Yeah, he's got himself as high as about 23rd or 4th there before that stop, and this will drop him back a bit behind some of the LMP2 cars. But certainly that car has been running very, very well, and certainly with some very, very fast lap times as well.
Chasing up the order behind in the wash-off, Nelson Piquet, who is driving the number 12 Rebellion car that stopped very early on behind the safety car for issues with its induction system. And you can see full service for the Audi. Talked earlier on about pressurized systems inside the car. You can see inside the door here a blue bottle and a red bottle. One of those is a pressurized container for the oil system to make sure that remains topped up. The other one is a pressurized system for the drinks bottle to make sure that gets topped up. Both are changed, and for very, very obvious reasons, they are very different colours, because you wouldn't want to mix them up on your driver. Into the pit road comes Joey Hand.
And the little flap with all the holes drilled on it, perforated flap, that's what houses the fuel flow meters.
Ryan Briscoe, not Joey Hand. Indeed, yes.
In the Audi.
To measure, and all the hybrid cars have a fuel flow meter to make sure that the ACO can check if they are using more than their allocation of fuel. So the bonnet cover, if you like to call it that, or front bay cover, is back on 91. It's still not left the garage though, so I wonder if they have had a radiator punctured by a stone or some similar, where they have a knock-on issue. So 69 on pit road. It wasn't Joey Hand. Who did I say it was? Ryan Briscoe. He'll stay in for full service.
The front bumper would have to come off actually for a radiator change.
Yeah.
So I mean, you asked me what's housed in there in the boot. The fuel tank's in there.
Yep.
The brake master cylinder, clutch master cylinder, all of that stuff's in there.
So brake master cylinder, and we saw a man with discs. So are we suggesting we're kind of putting 2 and 2 together and going completely the wrong direction, possibly, but it might be that the thing wasn't stopped properly, and the brake master cylinder was off, so that they can bleed the brakes and change the discs and so on. So waiting also for the 48 car. Wondering what had happened to the Murphy's prototype machine because it has dropped off the pace. Maybe that's a Liz Halliday answer to a question, because the number 48 car here comes down pit road. Last year open prototypes here, so the Oreca Nissan, this is not even a 05 Oreca, this is an 03R, which is the updated 03 Oreca chassis. And that comes in, Mark Hewson shaking his head. They have not got pace in that car. Jeroen Bleekemolen, Mark Hewson and Ben Keating. It looks like Murphy's prototype, Murphy's men have run into an issue with that car.
I think he was being offered a drink there.
Ah, okay.
That's what it was. It was either that
offered
or
a drink. Blimey, they're good.
Yeah.
I thought they'd had enough last night. 78 are AM-class leading Porsche. This is Wolf Hensler in the KCMG car. Same group sponsoring this as the car in front. The two KCMG cars in the same shot. Now there's the sponsor's wet dream at this early stage of the race. And one of them is leading in the LMP2 class. That's number 47. And one of them is leading in the GT AM class. That's number 78. So KCMG on top of the two classes there, contesting with a single car entry in both. And Greg Murphy's car is back in the garage.
No mean feat is for KCMG. Brilliant effort there by Wolf. It's been a long drive by Wolf as well. And number 88 car is running the second place in that class. That's the Abu Dhabi Proton Racing entry with David Heinemeier Hansen having taken over from Patrick Long a stint and a half ago, I think. Certainly at least a stint ago.
Oh, leaking fluid on left rear. That is 91 Porsche. Was that fluid or smoke, or is that a loose left rear? Loose left rear?
No, it looks like fluid to me. That looks like a mist. That looks like
that's steaming. That's not brake fluid.
Actually,
that's hot. Ow. That is a cooler. That is a cooler, not cooling.
You're right. Absolutely. Look, they don't have to take the bumper off. They've just changed their rad.
So problems from 91, which is just left. We asked about ennobled attitude or other. And 89 is off. That's the WeatherTech 2 driver car in the AM class.
Mark Miller,
the bronze driver. So Cooper McNeil too ill to race the car. They had a standby driver, an officially approved reserve driver in the form of Gunnar Jeanette, who's a former multiple race finisher here. And that is a lot of damage. It's torn the belting off the tyre stack. Mark Miller's gone off hard there. Mark Miller was due to drive a double-hander in that car because Cooper McNeil not fit to drive. And so Lee Keane and Mark Miller were going to have to do a second or a two-hand stint. And they were hoping to get Gunnar Jeanette in. And although he took part in the test day and is an authorised by the ACO reserve driver, they said, no, he can't drive.
Yeah, there's a couple of podium finishes here at past as Gunnar, so yeah, that was a very strange decision, as you say, having done no fewer than 20 laps at the test here, so it wasn't as if he just did a lap or two. It's the fourth place car in GTE Pro, Earl Bamber in number 92 Porsche, also onto pit lane.
Lord Grayson, we've heard, of course. John Whitmore, did he race here at Le Mans when he was knighted? Count Carol Godin de Beaufort raced at LM and also Grand Prix. Also Baron Fritz Huske von Hanstein, who not only was a racing driver but also was Porsche's pressman for many, many years. Earl Howe raced here, yes he did. Andy Prio OBE.
Sir Ben Barker.
Sir Ben Barker, is he? Oh my goodness! Yikes! Now that was a lose a long way back down the Dunlop curve, and on the way, I wondered how he had got there on the exit of Dunlop chicane. Was there contact or was there not? Prepare for a slow zone here. Okay, so we're going to see something that we haven't seen so far. Tim Birkin. Thank you, everybody in Noble Drivers. Number 5 had to pit again for new tyres due to big vibration on the previous set, according to the Toyota team, which is exactly what we saw. So one lap in and the tyres were a bit wibbly and wobbly.
Was it a full set? If it was a full set, it was a very quick stop, because generally to change...
It's about a 20-second change.
Well, it said new tyres. Toyota said new tyres, didn't say necessarily a full set. So slow zone at zone 1 and 2 and 3. Now this 14 point whatever kilometre track is broken up into zones. A slow zone, problems for 13, the Rebellion won't start, and it's in a fast lane almost. A slow zone is where there a mandatory maximum speed of 80 kilometers an hour. You have a 60k speed limit in the pits, a limiter button for that, and the 80k's in the slow zone out on the track, and anybody who infringes on that will be penalised with a stop-go penalty.
Завтра в прямом эфире на Евроспорт 2. Route du Sud. 5-й этап.